Welcome, listeners. This is Ivan Franklin Rose, and this is the one about what in the world are neurotransmitters and why should we care? Because they affect everyday life. They affect our behavior and how we act towards others. And they affect our relationships, our friendships, and our work relationships as well. Today we're going to explain what they are, and we're going to cover additional foods and herbs that can enhance neurotransmitters in the brain for better health and a better life. In episodes 41 and 42, we listed good and bad food choices for brain health, and in episode 11 and 51, we talked about nutritional herbs and vitamins that could ease stress, anxiety, and even depression. Many of them achieve that result by positively affecting brain neurotransmitters. Let's look at what that means, and then we'll add new ones to the list. So what are neurotransmitters? In an article in the Very Well Mind called Functions, Types, and Potential Problems with Neurotransmitters, written by Kendra Cherry, MSED, updated March 29, 2023. Kendra is a psychosocial rehabilitation specialist, psychology educator, and author of the Everything Psychology book. And this was medically reviewed by Shaheen Lakan, MD, PhD, FAAN, an award-winning physician, scientist, and clinical development specialist. She says, neurotransmitters are chemical messengers that carry boost and balance signals between neurons, also known as nerve cells, and target cells throughout the body. These target cells may be in glands, muscles, and other neurons. Billions of neurotransmitter molecules consistently and constantly work to keep our brains functioning, managing everything from breathing to heartbeat to learning and concentration levels. So you can see how important they are. They can also affect various psychological functions such as fear, mood, pleasure, and joy. Some common neurotransmitters in the brain and body include serotonin, dopamine, glutamine, epinephrine, and norepinephrine, and endorphins. So let's look at how neurotransmitters work. Skip ahead if you rather go right to the herbs and food recommendations, but I think you'll find this interesting. In order for neurons to send messages throughout the body, they need to be able to communicate with one another to transmit signals. However, neurons are not simply connected to one another. At the end of each neuron is a tiny gap called a synapse, and to communicate with the next cell, the signal needs to be able to cross this small space. This occurs through a process known as neurotransmission. In most cases, a neurotransmitter is released from what's known as the axon terminal after an action potential has reached the synapse, a place where neurons can transmit signals to each other. When an electrical signal reaches the end of a neuron, it triggers the release of small sacs called vesicles containing neurotransmitters. These sacs spill their contents into the synapse, where the neurotransmitters then move across the gap towards the neighboring cells. These cells contain receptors where the neurotransmitters can bind and trigger changes in the cells. After release, the neurotransmitter crosses the synaptic gap and attaches to the receptor site on the other neuron, either exciting or inhibiting the receiving neuron depending on the neurotransmitter. Now, this all affects our behavior, and I'll tie it in and you'll understand why this is important to understand. Receptors and neurotransmitters act like a lock and key system. Just as it takes the right key to open a specific lock, a neurotransmitter, the key, will only bind to a specific receptor, the lock. If the neurotransmitter is able to work on the receptor site, it triggers changes in the receiving cell. Sometimes neurotransmitters can bind to receptors and cause an electrical signal to be transmitted down the cell, excitatory. In other cases, the neurotransmitter can actually block the signal from continuing, preventing the message from being carried on, inhibitory. So what happens to a neurotransmitter after its job is complete? Once the neurotransmitter has had the designated effect, its activity can be stopped by three mechanisms. One, degradation. An enzyme changes the structure of the neurotransmitter so it can't be recognized by the receptor. Two, diffusion. The neurotransmitter drifts away from the receptor. And three, reuptake. The whole neurotransmitter molecule is taken back by the axon of the neuron and that released it. Neurotransmitters play a major role in everyday life and functioning. Scientists do not know exactly how many neurotransmitters exist, but more than 60 distinct chemical messages have been identified. Neurotransmitters can be classified by their function. Excitatory neurotransmitters. These type of neurotransmitters have excitatory effects on the neuron, meaning they increase the likelihood that the neuron will fire an action potential. Some of the major excitatory neurotransmitters include epinephrine and norepinephrine. Inhibitory neurotransmitters. These types of neurotransmitters have inhibitory effect on the neuron. They decrease the likelihood that the neuron will fire an action potential. Some major inhibitory neurotransmitters include serotonin and gamma aminobutyric acid, which is GABA. Modulatory neurotransmitters. These neurotransmitters, often referred to as neuromodulators, are capable of affecting a larger number of neurons at the same time. These neuromodulators also influence the effects of other chemical messengers. Where synaptic neurotransmitters are released by axon terminals to have a fast-acting impact on other receptor neurons, neuromodulators diffuse across a larger area and are more slow-acting. Neurotransmitters that act as neuromodulators include acetylcholine, dopamine, serotonin, histamine, and cannabinoids. Some neurotransmitters, such as acetylcholine and dopamine, can create both excitatory and inhibitory effects depending on the type of receptors that are present. You'll see how this all ties in to your actions and behaviors in just a minute. There are a number of different ways to classify and categorize neurotransmitters. In some instances, they are simply divided into monoamines, amino acids, and peptides. Neurotransmitters can also be categorized into one of 6 types. Irregularities might be corrected by the list of natural herbs and foods to follow, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Amino acids. The GABA, gamma aminobutyric acid, this naturally occurring amino acid acts as the body's main inhibitory chemical messenger. GABA contributes to vision and motor control, also playing a role in the regulation of anxiety. Benzodiazepines, which are used to help treat anxiety, function by increasing the efficiency of GABA neurotransmitters, which can increase feelings of relaxation and calm. Glutamate, the most plentiful neurotransmitter found in the nervous system. Glutamate plays a role in cognitive functions such as memory and learning. Excessive amounts of glutamate can cause excitotoxicity, resulting in cellular death. That's important. This excitotoxicity caused by glutamate buildup is associated with some diseases and brain injuries such as Alzheimer's disease, stroke, and epileptic seizures. Then there's peptides. One is oxytocin. This powerful hormone acts as a neurotransmitter in the brain. It is produced by the hypothalamus and plays a role in social recognition, bonding, and sexual reproduction. Synthetic oxytocin, such as pitocin, is often used as an aid in labor and delivery. Both oxytocin and pitocin cause the uterus to contract during labor. Next, endorphins. These neurotransmitters inhibit the transmission of pain signals and promote feelings of euphoria. These chemical messengers are produced naturally by the body in response to pain, but they can also be triggered by other activities such as aerobic exercise. For example, experiencing a runner's high is an example of pleasurable feelings generated by the production of endorphins. And monoamines. Monoamines, like epinephrine, also known as adrenaline. Epinephrine is considered both a hormone and a neurotransmitter. Generally, epinephrine is a stress hormone that is released by the adrenal system. However, it functions as a neurotransmitter in the brain. And also norepinephrine. This naturally occurring chemical is a neurotransmitter that plays an important role in alertness and is involved in the body's fight or flight response. Its role to help mobilize the body and brain to take action in times of danger or stress. Levels of this neurotransmitter are typically lowest during sleep and highest during times of stress. Histamine is another one. This organic compound acts as a neurotransmitter in the brain and spinal cord. It plays a role in allergic reactions and is produced as part of the immune system's response to pathogens. Dopamine, commonly known as the feel-good neurotransmitter. Dopamine is involved in reward, motivation, and addictions. Several types of addictive drugs increase dopamine levels in the brain. This chemical messenger also plays an important role in the coordination of body movements. Parkinson's disease, which is a degenerative disease that results in tremors and motor movement impairments, is caused by the loss of dopamine-generating neurons in the brain. Serotonin, a hormone and neurotransmitter. Serotonin plays an important role in regulating and modulating mood, sleep, anxiety, sexuality, and appetite. Selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, SSRIs, are a type of antidepressant medication commonly prescribed to treat depression, anxiety, panic disorder, and panic attacks. SSRIs work to balance serotonin levels by blocking the reuptake of serotonin in the brain, which can improve mood and reduce feelings of anxiety. So you can see how some of these all tie together. The actions and how we are and how we behave is all tied to the neurotransmitters and how they function. Next is purines, like adenosine. This naturally occurring chemical acts as a neuromodulator in the brain and is involved in suppressing arousal and improving sleep. Adenosine triphosphate, ATP, considered to be the energy currency of life. ATP acts as a neurotransmitter in the central and peripheral nervous system. It plays a role in the autonomic control, sensory transduction, and communication with glial cells. Research suggests it may also have a part in some neurological problems, including pain, trauma, and neurodegenerative disorders. Next is gasotransmitters, like nitric oxide. This compound plays a role in affecting smooth muscles, relaxing them to allow blood vessels to dilate and increase blood flow to certain areas of the body. And carbon monoxide. This colorless, odorless gas can have toxic and potentially fatal effects when people are exposed to high levels of the substance. However, it is also produced naturally by the body, where it acts as a neurotransmitter that helps modulate the body's inflammatory response. And acetylcholine. Now, acetylcholine is the only neurotransmitter in its class. Found in both the central and peripheral nervous systems, it is the primary neurotransmitter associated with motor neurons. It plays a role in muscle movements as well as memory and learning. So what are some of the problems with neurotransmitters? Well, as with many of the body's processes, things can sometimes go awry. It's perhaps not surprising that a system as vast and complex as the human nervous system would be susceptible to problems. A few of the things that might go wrong include neurons might not manufacture enough of a particular neurotransmitter. Neurotransmitters may be reabsorbed too quickly. Too many neurotransmitters may be deactivated by enzymes. Too much of a particular neurotransmitter may be released. When neurotransmitters are affected by disease or drugs, there can be a number of different adverse effects on the body. Diseases such as Alzheimer's, epilepsy, and Parkinson's are associated with defects and deficits in certain neurotransmitters. Certain neurotransmitters play an important role in the brain by influencing mood, which is why they are sometimes described as feel-good chemicals. 5 important neurotransmitters, including dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, norepinephrine, and endorphins, are very important. Health professionals recognize the role that neurotransmitters can play in mental health conditions, which is why medications that influence the actions of the body's chemical messengers are often prescribed to help treat a variety of psychiatric conditions. For example, dopamine is associated with such things as addiction and schizophrenia. Serotonin plays a role in mood disorders, including depression and OCD. Dopamine, GABA, serotonin, and norepinephrine are linked to anxiety disorders. Drugs such as SSRIs may be prescribed by physicians and psychiatrists to help treat symptoms of depression and anxiety. A little later, we'll look at what herbs you can take that might help in this area if you don't want to take drugs. If you prefer a non-pharmaceutical approach, here are some natural supplements for a healthy cognition, stress, and sleep. In an article July 17, 2024 by David J. Foreman, RPH, ND, David is a pharmacist, naturopath, author, speaker, and media personality known internationally as the herbal pharmacist. His background in pharmacy and natural medicine put him in an elite class of health experts. He is a graduate of the University of South Carolina College of Pharmacy and currently consults for ingredient suppliers and sits on the advisory board for Nutritional Outlook magazine. He says, when discussing neurological health, 3 primary areas apply to aging: cognition, emotional stress, and sleep. All 3 of these areas are interconnected. People have issues with sleep, yet stress may be the cause, or a person may be stressed due to lack of sleep. A person may struggle with cognitive function, not realizing that worry or stress or sleep problems are causing them not to remember. So it can all be related. Poor mental wellness isn't just bad for mental health, as it can influence all aspects of aging, such as cardiovascular health, immune health, weight control, elevated blood sugar, and pain management. Some of the clinically studied ingredients for cognitive health are American ginseng, Panax quinquefolius, as Cereboost from NatureX is one of the brands, was tied to enhancing acetylcholine levels while providing neuroprotective benefits. Most of these we're giving you have studies and support to back that they can help with or aid the things that we're talking about. Next is Bacopa. I mentioned it briefly in episode 51, but it's very important to bring up again, and we're going to tell you the brand that's been approved here. Bacopa monnieri, as in the form of Bacomine from Natural Remedies, has multiple mechanisms of action that support neurotransmitters involved in cognition. Of these, dopamine, acetylcholine, GABA, and serotonin are on the list. Bacopa is often looked at for its neuroprotective benefits. Bacomine, which is a registered trademark, is a patented, clinic-tested, memory and cognition-enhancing full-spectrum extract with 9 bioactives having GRAS status, generally regarded as safe. Bacopa monnieri, which is also called Brahmi, the herb Brahmi, is a plant revered in Ayurvedic medicine with an age-old reputation of being effective for memory and cognition. So companies like the one that patented Bacomine have tested their formulas to make sure that they work. Whatever brand you get, make sure that the company who's the source has done their research and testing so you know that it has some validity and they're using the best quality. Next is wild Canadian blueberry or French grape. Latin word is Vaccinium angustifolium, and A. Vitis vinifera L for the French grape. As mimophenol from Active Inside, that's a brand, extract studies showed to positively affect dopamine and norepinephrine levels impacted by stress. It also provides benefits in neuronal signaling. Research has shown berry fruits to be neuroprotective. Next is green oat, Avena sativa, in the form of Documentaion from Anklum Extract GmbH, manufacturer. Research on their brand indicated it positively impacts PDE4, which is phosphodiesterase, one of the main enzymes that specifically contributes to intercellular signaling. And monoamine oxidase B, which is MAOB, was also found to increase. So PDE4 supports both norepinephrine and serotonin, while MAOB supports dopamine, norepinephrine, acetylcholine, and serotonin. So that's what those two compounds will affect. Green oat is recognized and has been known for decades as a remedy to help relieve mild symptoms of stress. The manufacturer, Anklum Extract, investigated the effects of green oat extract in a double-blind clinical study, placebo-controlled, including 132 healthy adults. Documentaion, which is their brand, supplementation showed a significant improvement of working memory and a beneficial influence on multitasking. It also positively modulated a physiological stress response. Next is red grape, which is Vitis vinifera, and in the form of Cognigrape from Bionap, was shown to improve cognitive functions such as attention, language, and immediate and delayed memory. Cognigrape is a standardized powder extract from red grape juice containing high concentrations of active grape substances such as anthocyanins and proanthocyanidins. Cognigrape is an ingredient developed by Bionap to improve cognitive performance and prevent brain aging. Many studies have been done. In one study, 111 subjects were recruited and randomly divided into two groups. One group received the V. vinifera-based dietary supplement Cognigrape for 12 weeks, 250 milligrams a day, and the second group received a placebo over the same period of time. Before and after the end of the supplementation period, cognitive function and neuropsychological status were evaluated using the Mini Mental State Examination, MMSE, the Beck Depression Inventory, BDI, Hamilton Anxiety Rating Scale, HARS, and the Repeatable Battery for Assessment of Neurological Status, RBANS, evaluation. Results. The MMSE scores were significantly improved after supplementation with Cognigrape in comparison with the baseline levels. Cognigrape supplementation produced a significant reduction in BDI, minus 15.8%, and HARS, minus 24.9% scores with respect to baseline levels in placebo, which were less than 0.0001. The RBANS total score also significantly improved. The comparisons with the placebo revealed improvements in several parameters among participants receiving Cognigrape attention: language, immediate memory, and delayed memory. During the study, no adverse effects were detected. Conclusion: the results show that 12 weeks of Cognigrape supplementation is safe, can improve physiological cognitive profiles, and can concurrently ameliorate negative neuropsychological status in healthy older adults. I personally met with the Bionap team at an ingredient supplier trade show and found them to be credible, responsible, and knowledgeable. Trade show called Supply Side, where all the ingredient manufacturers meet. The next is very interesting. It's called Sage, or Salvia, in the form of Cogniva from Nexira company. Studies demonstrated its impact on acetylcholine by inhibiting the enzyme that breaks down this neurotransmitter. The research also pointed to its high content of polyphenols and their neuroprotective benefits. In vitro and animal studies have confirmed that several salvia species contain a large array of active compounds that may enhance cognitive activity and protect against neurodegenerative disease. In the study I read when preparing this podcast, the active constituents in plants belonging to the genus Salvia variety are summarized, and their influence on pharmacodynamics pertinent to cognitive activity are detailed. In particular, the effects of plants belonging to the genus Salvia and their constituents on cognitive skills, including memory, attention, and learning, are detailed. Their potential effects on dementia, including Alzheimer's disease, are also examined. Completed human trials are summarized, and factors influencing the potency of salvia plants are covered in the one I read. Dosage was 600 milligrams a day over 29 days versus the placebo control group. Now, in a chart that I have, which is very interesting, I diagrammed it. In this chart, it shows what's in the plant, and some of the things are really interesting. It contains a lot of things, but it includes flavonoids, luteolin, apigenin, which apigenin is something that has been just recently discovered as an item to take for the brain itself, and it's in sage. And quercetin, which is also a very important substance. You can look up quercetin, and it's in here too, as well as many other things. It's just too much to read, but a lot of important acids are in here. And so what it affects, it has a amyloid peptide effect, a cholinergic activity effect, a neurotropic effect, anti-inflammatory effect, antidepressant and anxiolytic effect, and antioxidant effect. All of this is in sage. You can look it up, but it's amazing. I saw this chart and I just had to share it. The components are too much to read, but if you look at what's in there, the kind of acids that are in there, it's amazing. All right, next we want to talk about items for stress. People exposed to chronic stress age rapidly. The telomeres in their cells of all types shorten faster. Inflammation is another important feature of stress, along with aging, that accounts for the phenomenon of inflammaging, which is a term for inflammation causing aging. By the way, telomeres, you can look it up. It has to do with strands of DNA. Tells how long you're going to live by the length of your telomeres. Now, there are two companies that make actual products to lengthen the length of a telomere. So you might look it up. One is Longevity by Nature, and you can look at their telomere product. But research what telomeres are. It's fascinating. And if you can increase the length of a telomere, they say you can increase the length of your life. Just look it up and you'll be amazed at what you research for telomere length. All right. So in stress, we're going to talk first about ashwagandha, which we mentioned briefly before, but its Latin name is Withania somnifera, is well known and recognized as the king of adaptogens. Adaptogens help the body adapt to physical or emotional stress. One study with ashwagandha demonstrated its ability to help reduce stress and anxiety and positively affect the stress hormone called cortisol. In another double-blind study, ashwagandha intake was associated with an 18% greater increase in DHEA-S and a 14.7% greater increase in testosterone compared to the placebo group. Another study showed a sleep benefit if taken at night. Usual dosage is 750 to 1,300 milligrams daily. Look for any brand using KSM66 as the source. They've done a lot of research on the quality of their ashwagandha ingredient, and they sell it to many manufacturers. Next is holy basil. I think the Latin name is Ocimum tenuiflorum. As Holixer from Natural Remedies, that's the company that did the testing, is also known as an adaptogen. A study completed with Holixer showed improvements in hair cortisol levels, chronic stress indicators, perceived stress, and acute stress. Holy basil is a very good adaptogen. Next is saffron, Crocus sativus L. In studying its mechanism of action in rodents, involves the neurotransmitters influencing stress by inhibiting the reuptake of dopamine, norepinephrine, and serotonin. Healthy adult studies with saffron from PharmActive Biotech showed it increases mood, reduces anxiety, and manages stress. Now I would like to cover a couple more things that I want to add to this list, and then we'll go back to her list. I would like to add magnesium L-threonate, which is capable of crossing the blood-brain barrier as an influence on the organization and strength of synaptic connections between neurons. A new study published in Nature Communications has revealed the mechanisms of action of magnesium L-threonate, a chelated form of magnesium marketed as a dietary supplement ingredient by Threotech as Magtine. Many companies will carry their ingredient, Life Extension and Jarrow and Now, and all these manufacturers use the Magtine formula. Anyway, so you can find it on the shelves in most stores. The in vitro study conducted by neuroscientists from Neurocentria and Tsinghua University provides insights into how magnesium levels in the brain control the organization and strength of synaptic connections between neurons. The study highlighted two categories of synaptic configurations based on their shape, number, and functional status. Strong configurations are more fixed and rigid and have less capacity for new connectivity. These neurons encode older memories. Weak configurations have a greater encoding capacity and are more flexible and capable of making new connections. Magnesium L-threonate penetrates into the neuron where it increases the quantity and density of these weaker, more adaptive connections, the authors of the study concluded. The study follows more than a decade of research on magnesium L-threonate, which highlights its unique ability to enter neurons and drive the molecular changes necessary for enhanced synaptic plasticity and reduced brain aging. Raising neuronal magnesium concentrations, particularly in the hippocampus, induces structural and molecular concentrations that promote a younger, more adaptive brain configuration, according to the authors, which highlights the potential role of magnesium L-threonate in mitigating the effects of age-related cognitive decline. Our study not only deepens the understanding of magnesium's critical roles in normal brain function, but also bolsters our belief that magnesium L-threonate can be foundational for addressing neurological health, says Guisong Liu, MD, PhD, lead author of the paper. Manufacturers put about 2 grams as a daily portion, which is usually 3 capsules or pills or part of theirs, but normally it's contained in 3. That's what they recommend. It contains also some elemental magnesium, usually about 144 milligrams of elemental, but you still need more elemental for magnesium balance in the body. For general magnesium, this is a special type of magnesium that goes right to the brain. So still continue to take some form of other magnesium at 300 to 400 milligrams a day. This will be 144 milligrams of it, and then the rest will go right to your brain of the 2 grams. Okay. The next thing I want to add, the last one, is turmeric and curcumin, which is the derivative derived from turmeric. It's an extract from it, and what does the magic mostly. There are curcuminoids, which have benefit, and then one of the curcuminoids is curcumin. It's the most prevalent one in the studies. So let's look at the 6 health benefits of turmeric and the curcumin from it. This is an article by Courtney Southwick published on July 9th, 2024, so just recently in health.com. Courtney is a freelance writer focusing on health, nutrition, and disease. She has been blogging for the past 2 years at CourtneySouthwick.com. She writes blogs and articles for online publications and for healthcare professionals in private practice. She provides well-researched articles that have been published in Health, Livestrong, Health News, Eating Well, and Clean Plates. This article of hers was also medically reviewed by Allison Harries, RDN. So, the first is it's shown to improve metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome, also called insulin resistance syndrome, is a condition that increases your risk for type 2 diabetes, stroke, and heart disease. It's characterized by having 3 or more risk factors such as high blood sugar, triglycerides, and blood pressure. 1 in 3 adults have it. A small study published in 2016 examined the effects of supplementing with curcumin in people with metabolic syndrome. The researchers tested pro-inflammatory cytokines, or proteins associated with metabolic syndrome. The study authors found that curcumin significantly reduced cytokines in the participants' blood sample over 8 weeks. Number 2, it helps alleviate depression and anxiety symptoms. Depression is a common and serious mental health condition that causes feelings of sadness, low energy, low appetite, and loss of pleasure. Nearly 17% of people will experience depression in their life, usually during the late teens or early 20s. A review published in 2020 of 9 studies looked at the effects of turmeric that it may have on depression and anxiety. The researchers found that people supplementing with turmeric saw significant improvements in symptoms. 3, it lessens inflammation. Inflammation is part of the immune system's defenses. The immune system sends out inflammatory cells and chemicals, like cytokines, to protect and heal your body when you encounter germs or injure yourself. Chronic inflammation means your immune system may be sending out this response all the time, even when it's not needed. This can lead to pain, fatigue, depression, weight gain, infections, acid reflux, and other issues. A review published in 2015 of 7 clinical trials looked at turmeric and oxidative stress, which is an imbalance between harmful chemicals and antioxidants. The researchers found that taking turmeric supplements for more than 6 weeks resulted in fewer oxidative stress markers and increased antioxidants. It also may improve kidney disease in people with diabetes. Renal disease or kidney disease affects 1/3 of all people with diabetes. Excess sugar in the blood can damage the kidney's blood vessels over time if diabetes goes untreated. Kidney disease usually develops slowly over the course of many years. Research has found that supplementing with turmeric can lead to improvements in tests that measure markers of kidney damage. Turmeric might lower levels of albumin in the urine. Albumin is a muscle-building protein that's normally in your blood but shows up in urine when there's kidney damage. Number 5, it may inhibit cancer cells. Cancer refers to a number of diseases that all have one thing in common. Cells begin to grow abnormally and spread and harm nearby body tissues. Many studies have been conducted on turmeric and cancer. Most have only looked at animals or in vitro. Few studies have been conducted on humans, but some evidence suggests that curcumin nanoparticles from turmeric may slow the growth of cancer cells. Curcumin may even shrink tumor size and weight. Wow. What does it hurt? It doesn't hurt to take this. It can only benefit you. All right, 6, it may improve pain with arthritis. Arthritis is inflammation of the joints or where 2 bones meet. like your knee or elbow. Symptoms of arthritis include joint pain, swelling, and stiffness. Turmeric is well known to have anti-inflammatory properties which can help with such inflammatory diseases. Some evidence suggests that turmeric can modify pro-inflammatory cells called cytokines. This can reduce inflammation in people with osteoarthritis, OA, with the most common type of arthritis. The body poorly absorbs curcumin unless black pepper is added to it. Turmeric is also a fat-soluble substance, so you need to eat it with source of fats for your body to absorb it well. Pair turmeric with fat sources such as avocado or cheese. The Food and Drug Administration, FDA, has approved curcuminoids, anything isolated from turmeric, and calls them generally regarded as safe, GRAS. Supplements from turmeric with 4,000 to 8,000 milligrams per day are recognized as safe. I personally take 2,000 milligrams a day. Most vitamin manufacturers will add the pepper or some other kind of delivery system, so you don't have to worry about that. Like any supplement, if you are on any kind of medication, check with your doctor to see if there are any known interactions. All right, let's continue with the other list that we were doing before. The last category on their list was sleep. More evidence suggests that habitually short or disturbed sleep may significantly affect long-term health and longevity. Short sleep duration. Example, sleeping 5 or fewer hours per night is associated with increased risk for the premature development and progression of age-related conditions. For example, type 2 diabetes or coronary heart disease. GABA, as Pharma Gamma from Pharma Foods International, targets GABA receptors, therefore increasing REM, rapid eye movement, also known as the deepest level of sleep, by 99.6%, and NREM, non-REM, but still a positive part of the sleep process, by 20.6%. Next, L-theanine, as suntheanine from Tayo International, one of the manufacturers of it. Studies confirmed by them improvements in the time it takes to fall asleep, stage 1, and stage 4 of the sleep cycle. PEA, as Levagen. Research showed improvements using Levagen in sleep latency, number of awakenings, and time to feel awake. Throw in the fact that it also helps with pain, a contributing factor to poor sleep, and no wonder it's a good option for slumbering. That's called PEA, like P, and in the product called Levagen Plus. Then, saffron studies also supported its impact on occasional sleeplessness, as well as improved sleep quality and restorative sleep. Lastly, valerian from valerian root is known to increase stages 3 and 4 of the sleep cycle while decreasing stage 1, the time to fall asleep. So these are the additional herbal recommendations above the ones I gave in episodes 11 and 51. Now I'd like to look at how to eat to keep your brain healthy, to add to the list I gave you before of healthy and unhealthy foods for the brain. According to research in an article in eatingwell.com by Emily Joshu, published on June 15, 2021, and reviewed by dietitian Jessica Ball, MS, RD. She says, as researchers work to discover the causes and prevention of age-related cognitive decline, a growing body of research points to lifestyle factors, such as diet and exercise, as possible prevention measures. Dementia, characterized by a deterioration of memory and thinking, affects approximately 50 million people worldwide, with 10 million new cases per year. The World Health Organization estimates Alzheimer's disease, the most common form of dementia, is 6th leading cause of deaths in the U.S. and affects 5.7 million Americans, 2/3 of whom are women over age 65. As the Alzheimer's Association states that death from Alzheimer's disease increased 145% between 2000 and 2019, there is a growing sense of urgency to uncover prevention methods that can be practiced from an early age. One way to do that could start with what you eat. Nutrition plays a huge role in most body functions and how we function, including aging, says Liz Wenandi, MPH-RD, a registered dietitian at the Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center. For example, a 2019 study of dementia-free elders published in the journal Neuromage found that distinct nutrient biomarkers patterns were associated with cognitive health and functional brain network efficiency. A 2015 study in the journal Alzheimer's and Dementia showed that adhering to the MIND diet was linked to lower rates of Alzheimer's. And another 2015 study of the same publication found a link between the MIND diet and slower rates of cognitive decline. The brain's composition is one reason that it needs nutrients to thrive. The brain is approximately 60% fat, and consuming healthy fats is vital for proper brain development and protection against cognitive decline. Omega-3s, polyunsaturated fats that the body can't make on its own, are one of the more healthful fats that the brain needs. Omega-3s are really important for the stability of a lot of cells in the brain and for the cells to work properly. We want to keep the brain cells functioning at a high level. Weinardi says, there are lots of things that influence brain function, but when we talk about diet, omega-3s in particular play a huge role in the phospholipid around the outside of the cells. If the integrity of that cell is not really great, then those cells are compromised and they don't really work as well. So since the brain can't make omega-3s on its own, healthy food sources are essential. Fatty fish are one of the most common sources of omega-3s. For example, a 3.5-ounce serving of mackerel contains more than 5,100 milligrams of omega-3s, as well as 200% of the recommended daily intake of vitamin B12 and 100% of the antioxidant selenium. Nutrient-dense salmon is another popular source of omega-3s, and additionally, it contains high levels of vitamin D and B. Omega-3s are also found in chia seeds, walnuts, and extra virgin olive oil. Omega-6s, however, are a type of polyunsaturated fat that can be obtained only through diet. While the body needs at least some level of omega-6 to protect against chronic disease, too many of these can increase the risk of harmful inflammation. These fats are typically found in mayonnaise and vegetable oils such as canola, soybean, and sunflower oil. We need omega-6. It's an essential fat that we can't make it, in other words, otherwise, so we need to take them in from food. The real issue is just that most people are taking way too many 6s in saturated fat. Too much of those in and way, way too little of the omega-3s, Weinardi says. An easy way to limit omega-3s is to replace vegetable oil with extra virgin olive oil. Weinardi also points to B vitamins as essential for brain and nervous health systems. These are found in dairy, fatty fish, lean meats, dark leafy greens, whole grains, nuts, and seeds. The nutrient choline, which is produced in small amounts by the liver but is primarily obtained from such foods as eggs, fresh cod, salmon, and broccoli, is crucial to memory formulation. That's why we talked about taking herbs that increase choline, in episode 51. The brain needs choline to produce the neurotransmitter acetylcholine, which impacts muscle movement, thinking, and working memory. Low levels of acetylcholine have been linked to learning and memory impairments, as well as Alzheimer's and dementia. Foods that promote brain health can also reduce inflammation and oxidative stress, an imbalance between free radicals and antioxidants, which fight infection and lower chronic disease risks. If you're looking to strengthen your brain with these nutrients, there's an eating plan for that. Brain-healthy foods are the foundation of the MIND diet, or Mediterranean-Intervention for Neurodegenerative Delay, or MIND, is in brief. The goal of the MIND diet is to reduce the risk of disorders such as Alzheimer's and dementia and cognitive decline that accompany aging. As the name implies, the MIND diet takes inspiration from the popular Mediterranean and DASH diets, which amplify fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, and fatty fish to protect against chronic conditions such as diabetes and heart disease. These diets are also consistent with the recommendations of the 2020 Dietary Guidelines for Americans from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and Agriculture, which advise a diet of leafy greens, legumes, fruit, whole grains, dairy, lean meats, eggs, and fatty fish. The MIND and Mediterranean diets both caution against added sugars, refined grains such as white bread and pasta, margarine, and red meats. They took two of the very best diets that have been shown time and time again to be the healthiest, Weinardi says. They're really very similar, but there are some small differences. While the Mediterranean and DASH diets both recommend eating a variety of fruits and vegetables, berries specifically are a primary fruit that has been shown to improve brain function. It's more of a precise diet that's really targeted towards brain function. It's a pretty comprehensive approach to eating, one Andy says. A recent study in Annals of Neurology, for example, found that berries were associated with significantly lower rates of cognitive decline among older women. Now, these can be used as a colorful topping for Greek yogurt or a helpful midday snack. The Mind diet also specifically cautions against high consumption of cheese, advising that it should be limited to about once a week. Now, this is something you can research on your own. Cheese does have some benefit, but there's a feeling that too much of it should be cut back on. Anyway, it's up to you. Beyond influencing the brain's ability to protect against cognitive decline and disease, nutrition can also influence mood and mental health. For example, the amino acid tryptophan found in turkey, tofu, chicken, and pumpkin seeds produces the B vitamin niacin, which is vital for creating the neurotransmitter serotonin. A lack of serotonin can worsen overall mood, which increases the risk of mood disorders such as depression. A 2016 study in the journal Nutrients, for example, found that emotional processes were inhibited in subjects who had depression or a high risk of developing it when subjects were depleted of tryptophan. Additionally, a 2015 study in the Archives of Psychiatric Nursing found that among 25 healthy young adult subjects, higher doses of dietary tryptophan resulted in significantly less depression and irritability and decreased levels of anxiety. Likewise, anti-inflammatory properties found in omega-3s, vitamin D, and folate have been linked to positive effects on depression and anxiety. A small double-blind study in the Journal of Affective Disorders, for example, found that Parkinson's patients who took fish oil omega-3 supplements presented an improvement in depressive symptoms. And a 2013 meta-analysis in the British Journal of Psychiatry noticed a link between depression and vitamin D in study participants and found that those with vitamin D deficiency are at greater risk for developing depression. There have been studies looking at these effects, and it shows that usually health food or healthy dietary patterns are also considered as being related to a lower risk of depression, anxiety, and those psychological mental health issues, says Yin Gu, MD, PhD, assistant professor of neurological sciences at Columbia University. However, Gu mentions and emphasizes that these effects are difficult to measure in observational studies. Advanced glycation end products, or AGEs, have also been linked to cognitive function and diseases associated with aging, such as Alzheimer's. AGEs are compounds formed when protein or fat